All right, let's get started, guys. Uh, a very warm welcome to about 250 odd participants that have joined us for this webinar. Um, Welcome to iCynthia's What's on Media webinar, where we'll be talking about adapting and responding during these crisis times. I'm sure a lot of you are joining us from your home as you're working from home, and so are we. So would love to interact with you and also take in some questions as we go forward in this webinar. So today we have Vishy, who comes in from Johnson & Johnson. Vishy is the Senior Director, Marketing and Business for J&J, and he looks after the region. We also have Kelvin from iCynthia, who is the Regional Business Director, and myself, Prashant. I take care of insights in the region. So today, what we will do is we'll be talking about adapting and responding during these times, and also sharing with you some of the findings that we have. Then what we'll do is we will be having some Q&A session with our guest panelist as well as with the audience. So we would take in some questions and also share with you with some key takeaways. All right, so let's get started. And here's the agenda, guys. So over the next hour, what we'll do is we'll be looking at sharing trend spotting insights on consumer behavior and how this behavior is changing. We would have seen a lot of articles and news chatter around the massive consumer behavior change that the world is having right now. And how can brands adapt and respond in these times rather than just sit and probably slide downwards? Then we'll be discussing with our guest speaker, Vishy, who comes from J&J, on his views around consumer behavior change. Is this change temporary or more permanent? Looking at some of the Q&A from our audiences as well. And then we'll be having some key takeaways for our audience, which Kelvin will be taking us through in terms of adapting and responding to these market shifts. All right, so let's get started. I'll be taking you through some of our insights on consumer behavior change, and then we will be going into Q&A. All right, so here is something that we have been pretty excited about, and we call this adapt and respond during these times. Now, what's happening around us is because of consumer behavior change, we are seeing a lot of our clients trying to understand what this change is all about. And once this change is happening, how to be true to their brand and at the same time react and respond. So we started looking at some of the social media and search trends on what people are talking about and what people are searching about to put together some of the trend spotting insights. So essentially our whole angle to this research piece, and this is just purely insights that we shared with you, is all about all of us are either falling into three buckets. First one being the business continuity planning. So either we are trying to do that, impact on our business and looking after continuity, or we are seeing we might be one of those industries that are badly impacted, for example, travel, airlines, hotels, or we might be fighting an overwhelming demand. If we are in a retail space or e-commerce, there's just so much surge in demand recently. Whatever is happening, the world is changing rapidly, and how can we look at shifting consumer behavior to adapt and respond? So here's a methodology. Before we share the trends with you, we looked into what people are talking about and what people are searching about. Now, these insights that we shared with you and the social and search analytics are independent of any market. We are looking at global phenomenon because as this situation, a lot of us are working from home, irrespective of whichever market we come from. And then what we are doing is we are looking at this data, conducting analytics over it, finding consumer trends and insights, and then understanding and sharing with our clients on how to adapt and respond by inspiring them to take action in the most positive and authentic manner. So what's shifting? And these are some of the themes that I'm sure you would have encountered or you would appreciate. The first one being work from home. As we are working from home, we are also quite bored at home sometimes because of lack of entertainment. They are distant from our loved ones. So there's a social distancing happening too. And it's a combination of balancing our work life at the same time, also balancing our entertainment. Then you would look at the frenzy in supermarkets that have happened, the toilet paper frenzy, but it's not just limited to toilet paper. There are other categories that are being wiped out. Since we are at home, we are also seeing a lot of delivery services. I'm sure over the day you would get so many parcels and so many people ringing the bell. And then maybe because of contactless delivery, you might be sharing with them on keeping the parcel outside. And there are many services, especially food delivery, who have started contactless delivery. Um, there's no travel, there's hardly anything happening right now, so there's impact on duty free. And since we are at home, there's a health and wellness issue as well. All right, so we will today go into 4 themes and look into work from home, supermarket frenzy, delivering more to me, and also looking at health and wellness. And in these 4 themes, we'll be sharing some insights with you, and more importantly, inspirations for brands to adapt and respond. So the first one is work from home. As you all know, we are in a gigantic work from home experiment. And what's happening is if you just look up for work from home, you would see that there are zillions of articles around talking about productivity, managing teams, looking at information, data security risk, etc. But who exactly is the one who is searching for work from home? And you would see this is the data from March 14 to 21st, because this situation evolves rapidly. This data might have changed, but this is during the lockdown times. And we see that right from Philippines, who were the #1 people looking up for work from home related queries on Google, all the way to Ireland. And these are the countries that are actually looking into figuring out how do they work from home. Now, as people start to search around it, let's also look into the consumer trends that are appearing out of it. And the first trend that we see is everyone is demanding unlimited internet is not a luxury anymore. It needs to be a basic utility, because as people juggle their entertainment and work from home, they want unlimited internet so that they can be productive. And you would see these examples coming in either from US or being retweeted in Singapore or being talked about in KL around internet being a basic necessity. And this is what people have been talking about and asking their local telcos to do something around it. Now, let's look at some of the telcos that have been doing a really good job at it. And this example comes from Circles Life, and at times their tongue-in-cheek advertising, which really resonates well. They came up with this ad, which was all about disinfecting the bill sharks. And they came up with this sanitizer, which was all about that when your bill comes as you're working from home, you got to sanitize it, guys, because you might be in for a shock. So these were the sort of funny things that brands have been doing, but the more important authentic communication, which Circles Life stands for, is providing unlimited data, because that's a basic utility. So how brands are looking at consumer trend, adapting to it, and then responding. Now, the next one, I'm sure you would have seen this video, and BBC recently interviewed this gentleman yet again, along with the entire family. Now, these memes are being shared online because parents are figuring out how do this straddle work with their kids on a weekday afternoon, which they're not used to. So now a lot of us might be sort of careful, or we might be locking our doors when we are doing work from home video meetings, because the kid might just appear from somewhere. So these are the conversations that we see in Australia happening. And a lot of Australians were talking about funny memes around working from home, but the panic was real. Now, we dive a little deeper to understand what kind of jobs does a work from home parent want to get done. And this is an application of jobs to be done theory that we use by the famous Harvard professor, Christian Gretensen. And he has been talking about how consumers have jobs and how brands can do their jobs. So we looked at it from a work from home parent's point of view. And essentially the conversations are about keep my child entertained, keep my child fed, and keep my child fit. Now, this is very much a weekday thing, because parents are also trying to find a work-life balance as they work from home. So let's look into how brands are participating in this jobs to be done. Now, we saw that there are brands, for example, YouTube. YouTube is collaborating with influencers and then coming up with lunch doodling, Now, lunch doodling is all about the parent has done their morning meetings, they're taking a break with the kid, and now they can do something productive by doodling with their kid and spend that quality time. Similarly, we saw that GoNoodle, which is more of an e-learning platform, has come up with a Frozen Make Your Move video series. And it is all about taking Frozen characters and then kids moving with them for the kids being fit. And Burger King looks after kids being fed. Because if you're a parent and if if you look at working from home and you're ordering a meal, the kids' meal is free. So essentially, as people adapt and respond while they're working from home, these are the four big insights that are coming up. Internet being a utility, learn from Circle's life. Delivery services need to assist work from home parents, and this is where Burger King comes in. Fitness programs for the kids, and take inspiration from GoNoodle or influencers, use them and then get the kids active and learn new skills. So that's the first theme. Before we go into the second theme, we actually have a poll running, guys. So would love to get some of your thoughts as well so that we can make it interactive before the Q&A. All right, let's go to the next theme. The next one is, as we are working from home, how do we look at delivery? And it's not just food delivery. It's also anything and everything that we want, because we probably are quarantined at home, or we have a circuit breaker as it's happening in Singapore, or there's an entire shutdown. Now, let's look at the demand for delivery and how it has skyrocketed. Now, what mainstream media is talking about is Uber Eats beefing up their grocery delivery services, or probably looking at how Tesco is looking at more delivery slots, or bullet trains being ready for home delivery in Japan. And what we are seeing here is that there are people searching actively for home delivery related topics, right from Mauritius all the way to Singapore. By the way, I'm very happy that you guys are participating in the poll. And right now, from my admin license, I can see about 50 odd people participating already. So I'll share the results with you in a bit. All right, let's go to the next one. So the trend that's happening is making delivery interactions meaningful. Why? Because there's a contactless delivery happening. Last time we used to be able to open the door and then probably say at least a hi to the delivery person, but now it's all contactless. So how this contactless relationship is evolving, let's look at one of the tweets that got viral in Singapore. So this one was a Grab driver, and what he did was he looked at, he recorded a message which was with a music, and he said that he's coming to your doorstep with your favorite food, but it wasn't a funny way rather than a transactional driver is on your way. And this person was quite surprised, and they started tweeting more around it. And this got retweeted about 17,000 odd times, because people like this, the small kind gestures of delivery guys coming to your doorstep and really being the essential part of the services. Now, we also saw that there has been appreciation of essential services, more importantly for delivery staff. And we saw that in Australia, we saw that in UK, we saw that in Singapore, where people are clapping up for essential services, who are the heroes already, and also emergence of this new hero. That's the delivery staff, and how we all are being so appreciative of this one, who was supposed to be a gig economy worker before. So the big insight is this, that there is an emergence of new hero, and this hero is a delivery person. And right from going from a gig economy worker to becoming an essential worker, that's the new finding that we have discovered in COVID-19 times. And we hope that this continues to be, in the sense that as we go back to good times, we are still appreciative of people who are actually earning their wages and were heroes in these times. All right, now, if people care about delivery staff, then what about their safety? And we saw that a lot of people were talking about, since they're putting their lives on the line, they should be safe. And what we saw was that while there are services like Grab and Deliveroo and Foodpanda who are looking at contactless delivery, some brands are going even a notch higher. So we saw Ocado in UK, and what they did was they took the test kits, COVID-19 test kits, And then the first ones they actually made it available to was delivery staff. They said, look, contactless is good, but then we need to go beyond it. So ultimately, how do we look at the overall ecosystem of delivery during these times? And a lot of consumers are talking about that delivery apps were actually not built for COVID-19. They are built for just convenience. And are they doing the user experience changes during COVID times? And these are the conversations that are actually appearing online. For example, can you apply 2 promo codes together because of limitation of app functionality? Or is there supply and demand issue because there are not enough riders? So people are talking about UX, and people are saying that, look, I need more because times are critical for me and I'm heavily using it. So some of the brands have been addressing it. We saw that Singapore government has been looking at taxi drivers who are not getting too much work these days and looking to get them inducted into delivery services. We also saw some brands who are not getting dependent on any delivery services, but starting their own. And that's a great example coming from Brownies, which is a dairy in Australia. Finally, a good example of how some of the shows that are being cancelled offline. For example, you would see the major festivals that got cancelled, for example, XSXW, or even Olympics as being talked about, and also some events in Singapore. So what we are seeing is that Lazada, we all know Lazada, they are bringing an offline event online and saying that online tech show will be available to you. And what it means is that, and they did it in the past in March, but they are doing more of it because they are saying that why should consumers miss on to an experience which they were having offline, and we can provide that online to them. So ultimately adapting and responding by looking at 4 different new trends that are coming in, and then looking at your category and saying, how can you respond? How can you work with the times? The third one becomes supermarket frenzy. Because we are doing a lot of delivery at home, there are times that we go to supermarkets and we solve some of the toilet paper issues that happened earlier in March. So we did see that there was a surge in toilet paper demand, and a lot of people are even searching for like what's going on with this. So all the searches are coming from Australia, US, all the way to Malaysia on people being just curious about toilet paper. And then it was all about that it doesn't stop there. Consumers were trying to figure out supply chains, and they were saying that, look, if there are lockdowns happening and borders are being closed, how will I get my next item, which I was taking for granted? For example, how will I get my fresh vegetables? When Malaysia went for lockdown, Singapore had a panic buying of fresh fruits, vegetables, and milk, because it's the anticipation and it's how consumers look at the supply chain. It may not be the reality, but they are saying that Malaysia gets me the fresh vegetables, Singapore doesn't have it, so I need to panic buy. And this is where the government went on and they actually troubleshooted and busted some of the myths. So great chance for government, especially looking at the food departments, to look at how lockdowns are happening and how they can assure the consumers before panic buy happens. Retailers are also coming together. So we saw that there was a limitation that was imposed by certain retailers. This one is from FairPrice in Singapore, looking at vegetables, rice, and noodles. While in Australia, it was a great effort and solidarity with all the retailers coming together and saying that we are together in this, and let's look at our supply chain together and ensure that our job that we are supposed to do of getting food to the table is done without having internal issues. There was another great example coming in from Denmark, and this is a good example of using nudge in behavior economics. And we saw some of these getting adapted in Singapore as well. You're selling one bottle of a product or 1 unit of a product at a certain price, and 2 units become at least 10 times the price. So what it means is, instead of putting a harsh sort of a quota on it, it's more about having a funny vein to it, but also getting the message right. So stopping hoarding. Retail frenzy doesn't really stop at just washing out toilet papers all the way to vegetables, but also caring for the elderly and the vulnerable. And what we saw in terms of trends was that certain grocers are actually coming together, and they are taking care of the elderly and vulnerable through different strategies. They can have sort of limited time slots for them so that they are prioritized, or they may have a priority queue, or they may actually be doing specific home deliveries to these demographics. So ultimately, it's all about brands coming together for consumers, not just looking after the supply chain issues and addressing it upfront, but also caring for the lesser known sections of society and caring for essential workers. Here's a great example coming in from Reckitt Benckiser and also banks who are giving care packages to essential workers because they don't have time to queue up in supermarkets. So again, adapting and responding as a theme comes and disrupts industry. The final one is we all work from home. We all are waiting for home delivery services. We sometimes make a trip to supermarket, but what about our health and wellness in isolation? And what we are seeing is something really interesting. I'm sure you would agree that there is a boost in immunity, there is an immunity booster sale that has gone up, because we all are trying to tackle this by having more vitamins and saying that let's be more robust within. And this is what we are seeing in the search results as well. A lot of people are searching about how can I boost my immune system. That's not new. What's new is that vitamins are providing an illusion of control against coronavirus. Now, this is something which is quite old in psychology, and illusion of control comes from a game theory where people tend to, so when you play, let's say when you gamble, and you will have your so-called lucky charm next to you, because you find an illusion of control that you have more control over the chances that you have. You might have just the fair chance. Similarly, people think that when they're having vitamins, there is an illusion of control that they are more strong and their immune system is stronger, so they have less chance of contracting coronavirus, and they may slack on a flip side on the sanitation processes. So I am robust within, and I may not wash hands, or I may skip to wash hands. That's the sort of conversations that we are seeing. And if you look at this one, which was quite interesting, we saw in one of the Singapore forums, where people were talking about that in China and in New York, patients are giving high doses of vitamin C. Now, there are two conversations happening. One is the whole cyclone that happens within immunity. And the second one is that actually you can heal coronavirus with vitamin C. Now, there are some of the myths. We are not here to shoot those, but it's more about what are the consumer conversations that are happening and what can brands do around it. So what you would see here is brands are participating in it, and they're saying that, look, immunity is good, you should have it, but you should also exercise, not just keep popping vitamins, and also do engage in the basic sanitation practices that WHO tells you. And this starts getting more retweeted because a lot of people believe that it's a balance. And we saw that with a great TikTok challenge by Dettol. And I think it's not just this. There's so much opportunity that brands can have looking at the trends and seeing that how can the next big exercise challenge or the simplest thing or the yoga challenge can come into picture. And then look at not just washing hands, which people are quite used to now, but also health and wellness during isolation. The next trend that we saw was elective surgeries. And when governments said that elective surgeries can be put on a back burner because of the overwhelming demand coming from COVID-19, a lot of people were actually lost in the limbo. They were talking about that, look, I understand that elective surgery is something that is pushed further, but at least help me through the next steps. I need to know that if I have scheduled a surgery with someone, or I'm about to, what are the steps that I need to take? What's the time frame that I need to look for? And in this time frame where I'm waiting, how do I manage my condition? Because my pain is real. And we saw these conversations coming in from the social media conversations. We also saw that some of the elective surgeries, for example, cataract and knee surgery, actually declined because people are not looking up for them. So this was a reverse trend because people know that they can't do anything around it, but they have started to look up for elective surgery, that does their surgery qualify under elective or not. So these are some of the problems that consumers are facing, and probably there's a chance for especially health organizations and hospitals to go out and help them with content. Ultimately, helping patients navigate through this journey. Finally, as people are impacted and people are in isolation, it also impacts their mental health. And what we are seeing is that a lot of people are looking towards the so-called depression, and they don't. There are conversations around not being able to differentiate between depression and boredom. There are some facts that are out there. We know that domestic violence has increased. It's also related to the fact that a lot of people are getting retrenched. They are not used to spending so much time at home. So there are very many factors that are coming together for the domestic violence to increase, for also mental health to get impacted. And what we are seeing is that governments are looking at creative ways. For example, in Spain, what the police did was, when you look at streets, what happens is you are used to looking at streets full of people. And suddenly when you start looking at those streets that are just deserted, it just gives that feeling of emptiness. So what the police did there was they actually came out, and then they were all wearing masks, socially distant, and they started playing music. And this was a great way in which the police force there started engaging while keeping all the practices intact, but providing that sort of euphoria within consumers that think, look, things are good. I'm sure you would have seen those videos coming in from Italy and from other places that started in Wuhan, where people are coming together to cheer each other up. But there is a big uh, gap in terms of looking after mental health in these times. So what are brands doing? And they need not do this in a very serious manner. For example, Instagram and Netflix, Netflix has a so-called widget in which there are third-party providers that are giving Netflix party or Instagram watch along. So essentially coming together, not just talking to your friends, but also having a watch along party in which you can still be together and chat more around context. For example, you can comment around a movie, so on and so forth. So fitness at home is becoming a trend now, and exercises are being done with influencers. We are seeing Tom Holland, who's Spider-Man, coming up with his own versions of exercises, getting pretty strong on Instagram. Or this influencer from on the right-hand side in New Zealand, who was doing so-called his way of dunk challenge, ultimately getting good engagement from consumers because of high engagement. And these isolation and fitness exercises and so-called searches are coming from different places. And what people are searching about is equipment, weights. Can they actually replace a water bottle with a weight? Doing hyperextensions, having the ropes, having jumping ropes, burpees, etc., etc. So there is a big space in which this can turn into a TikTok challenge. So the big insight from us in health and wellness during isolation is all about the virtual fitness classes have started, where people are also sharing healthy recipes. There is a push by delivery services to eat more healthy, but consumers essentially are looking for this period of isolation to rest, reset, and emerge stronger. And how can brands participate in it? So ultimately adapting and responding to health and wellness during isolation by looking at helping people with the elective surgery, what's the next step for them, looking after mental health, and also looking at the next big challenge that we can all engage each other and make it big on TikTok. So that's pretty much on the findings that we have. We keep rolling these findings out every week. Thought this was a great platform for us to share. Now we'll move on to the Q&A part. We'll start with Vishy and Kelvin on some of the questions, which we see is that there's a huge conversations around and especially opinions around these. So let's look at that. I also have the poll results with me, and 284 people have voted. To share the results with everyone, what are the big industries that you see will be further impacted? And retail has come number one with 52%. Then we see entertainment at 42%, after which we see healthcare coming at 31%. So retail, entertainment, healthcare. And I think by entertainment, people are talking about concerts and going out for movies and things like that, not in-home entertainment. So it's a good segue for us to start with the first question, that we are 3 months into this. We know that certain industries have been impacted, but what do you guys think in terms of the industries that are gonna get the next one? Vishy?
Oh, sure. Hey, thanks everybody. I think, guys, just to introduce myself, my name is Vishy. I'm the marketing lead for Johnson & Johnson Southeast Asia. based out of Singapore. I think it's a great question. I think there are multiple things that are getting impacted right now, and some of which might see a resurgence, especially as we go in the future. So just to specifically talk to some of the categories that I work on, I think first, Johnson & Johnson has 3 or 4 subcategories, one of which is pharmaceuticals. And pharmaceuticals, we continue to see strong growth because it's medicines based for incidences that you specifically have, and that we continue to see moving forward. Elective surgery, as you said, I think that is a big component of our medical devices business. I do feel that that will continue to have some impact, especially as we move forward. People will continue to be cautious, especially when it comes to surgery that can be deferred, and they will take their time before they go back on that. So I feel that there will likely be some more impact that is coming over the course of the next couple of months, and then it might see a big resurgence as we move forward. And then we also have vision care. I think we do make a lot of contact lenses as well. And especially at a time where people are working from home and people are not venturing outside as much, the usage of specs is actually a lot more common as compared to contact lenses. So the usage and consumption of that is also getting impacted, and that might continue to be for some period of time. And then again, I think when you look at the entire consumer industry, I think particularly FMCG, there are categories that are linked with hygiene and health that are getting a lot more priority from consumers right now. And anything to do with the likes of beauty, for instance, is getting significantly impacted. I think especially when people are working from home. And even in markets that have resumed operations in some sense, right? Like even if you think about China, people are resuming operations, venturing out with a mask that is there. So the usage of several beauty subcategories are likely to continue getting impacted because you're unlikely to have the same sense of beauty regimen products that you were using previously. Yeah? So this is just a quick snapshot into what are some of the categories that might actually get impacted. Now, from a channel perspective, right? I think as we well know that SARS was the big inflection point that led to the surge of e-commerce in China. I think till then, e-commerce was not as significant and it created a dramatic movement. We are seeing that e-commerce is more than doubling. I think it is a very small part of the entire landscape in comparison with what we see in China today. But that is going to change dramatically where people get accustomed to ordering online and getting their services as well.
What do you think, Kelvin?
All right, so basically, let me introduce myself quickly first. So I take care of the regional business for Isentia. Basically, we are in kind of 11 markets across Asia, and we deal with almost every single B2B and B2C segment. So I usually take care of both commercial and government sectors. And obviously, through this entire period, we do see a lot of our clients, especially being an agency, being affected by this. So whether it's positively or negatively affected, it kind of remains to be seen. And I think it's really hard to say or think of any industry not impacted by this pandemic, you know. So a lot of times we look at, especially at the start of this particular crisis, you know, somewhere in January and February, there's a lot of uncertainty going on. You know, companies are not really sure what to do. You know, so a lot of disruption in the workplace. But I think now, third month in, we are starting to see a sense of normalcy, you know, going on in terms of getting used to working from home, getting used to Zoom meetings, you know, a lot of clients, I mean, a lot of our own meetings previously, you know, a lot of my colleagues don't really know how to mute themselves. Now they learned that the hard way, you know, so it's really like, either you learn to adapt or you just fall off the radar, you know. So I think this really not just affects the supply side, but you know, also on the demand side with shifting consumer preferences and spending. You know, we see the move from fresh food to canned food because people want to stock up, you know, from attending parties to playing online games, for example. You know, and I think even very interestingly, there's niches to be created around every single industry, you know. So even I have some friends in the insurance industry, you know, they're having time of their lives now because wherever they call someone, they know they're going to be at home. You know, so I think when you talk about really impact, everything is really going to be impacted. It's really what what the people in each brand, in each industry do about this. How do they seize the opportunities that arise from this? And of course, through what Prashant has said, how do we look for these opportunities that would actually affect, what they do in the future, and how do they do in the future?
Okay, great answers, guys. And just want to share with you the poll results, and then perhaps we can also talk more about it. So more people voted after we shared the results. So now travel is number one, impacted. Hotels is number two. Then comes retail, entertainment, and after that would be healthcare. So what do you guys think? Is it surprising to you, or that's the world we are living in right now?
I think let me take it first. Yeah, I think generally I'm in full sync with respect to what was just said, and see, particularly just reflecting, right? Hotels definitely. I think see, people will have more conscious actions related to social distancing, particularly even when we move towards a cautious recovery. And what I would believe, and this is again just a hypothesis, is that the likes of an Airbnb, which offers more individualized, personalized experience in someone else's house, where you're not literally mingling with hundreds of people around, might actually get more favor, especially as we come into the post world, versus a hotel where you're practically mingling with hundreds of guests. And so, just a hypothesis, but possibly something that could actually pan out. The other piece that I do feel is that with the work from home experiment that we've all done right now, I think technology is going to play an even bigger role. I think the role, I think as you rightfully said, Prashant, at the beginning, I think internet is no longer a luxury; it's a utility, and hence the role of services that rely on the internet are going to continue expanding. I think who would have imagined like a couple of months ago, right, that we would have constant webinars hosted over Zoom or hosted over Microsoft Teams, and these are all a reality of today, which might continue to some extent as we move into the future.
Well said, Rishi. And yeah, the Airbnb example is quite fascinating, especially the properties that you see which are totally secluded. So, and I just remember one of the influencers was posting, and this got flagged online, that they went for a private island, and that was a perfect way of quarantining themselves. Some of the rich billionaires are actually in their own cruise ship with their own families. And then people are obviously saying, because of class divide, that look, what about us? But Airbnb, and especially the more isolated properties, are a great way in which people can have access to travel without really being impacted, without really exposing themselves. Airlines are also trying to come back. They are also trying to do social distancing now, because now the risk of flying and getting COVID is similar to landing in a place where there is the virus. So they're also trying to come back with the safe distances. So it's going to be a very fascinating next 2-3 months once things start to open up again.
Actually, there is just one more piece, Prashant, that I'd like to add. I think, and honestly, again, these are all hypotheses at this time that we have. I think one of the other pieces, right, that especially the world over people have started realizing is that supply chains are not diversified enough. Meaning that in this global economy, we all rely on different countries to satisfy each of our needs. And particularly, it's also in times like these that countries would actually also have some more nationalistic sentiment and try to see on how they can consolidate some supply chain within their own boundaries as well. We don't know how this might actually change. For instance, Japan is reportedly investing about $2 billion in order to localize some more manufacturing away from China. So we don't know how all of these might evolve. But again, it is something to watch out for, particularly in the future, where some of the manufacturing landscape might actually shift from just the countries where it is based today.
Yeah, I agree with you, Vishy. It's something, the last 3 months has something a bit been like a reverse globalization. Borders are being closed. Everyone is trying to be self-sustainable. There's almost no travel, and I think that's really a very fair point. That we will never know how this would actually carry through to after COVID-19 ends. But I think one point I wanted to say is, I think for all of us, the 434 attendees in this webinar itself, all of us, I think we can count ourselves pretty lucky, right? In an extent that we work in the digital economy. That's why we are even able to be on this webinar. Most of us, we might be in the travel industry, might be in the retail industry, but probably working in a very infocoms kind of level, not really the frontline workers, the manual people at the store. And we might not be able to see the full impact, of COVID-19 on our livelihoods. So another point I wanted to make is that I think this, how does this actually affect the push for Industry 4.0, right? The entire conversation about trying to automate, trying to digitize, trying to, do infocoms better. I think before COVID situation actually started, it's the push for Industry 4.0 was really a factor of how to be more productive, how to increase your competitive advantage and reduce costs. Very, very much of an optional kind of push from the governments to the businesses, from the business owners to the employees. But I think now, Industry 4.0, having to digitize, it's more about survival. And that is a very, very strong motivating factor to actually digitize a lot of different businesses. And obviously we see that happening all over the world. Like governments like in Singapore are helping to onboard hawkers onto food delivery platforms, where they potentially might not have done previously. E-payments have been exploding, so on and so forth. So I mean, this is a very, very interesting period for us, and hopefully some of these effects actually carry through to when hopefully this COVID-19 ends in the near future.
Great response, Kelvin, and that's a nice segue into the next question, which is when the dust settles. And there are two schools of thoughts right now. One is you would see a lot of opinionists and columnists talking about everything is going to change. So every industry is disrupted, consumer behavior has massively changed. Once we all come out of our homes, we would be changed people. And then there are thinkers like Mark Ritson. A lot of people might follow him, Australian professor who is known for his quirky sense of humor. He says that consumers and we as people, basically we are all creatures of habit and nothing is going to change. We will go back to doing the same old thing and then probably push this as an episode that happened. So the world is divided. What do you guys think in terms of, is consumer behavior going to change or no? Or where do we sit in the gray area?
I think, see, to be honest, right, see, what I feel is that we are maybe a 90% creature of habit and 10% are the areas where we continue to evolve. Of course, this is a big jolt to everybody, right, in terms of the way that we do things. But I do believe as a collective, we do have very short memories. What I mean by that is that today, no one even talks about the trade war that used to happen between the US and China. And the narrative has completely shifted to something around COVID right now and the responses and what's happening, etc., etc. So I do feel that to a large extent, I think things will stabilize as we move forward, as the world evolves away from the COVID pandemic. There are some behaviors that might stay for like a bit, things like e-commerce, because it is just the same things that you were doing previously getting serviced in a different fashion. So that might definitely change for sure. But things as generally, right, man is a social animal. At the end, we do want genuine human interaction. We do want to bond with people. We want to laugh with people. We want to be around each other. I think that's a fundamental human nature, which I don't think will change. So most of these habits will continue to get back to where it was even previously. I think SARS again is a great reminder, right? I think, of course, the number of cases were a lot lesser. Of course, social media didn't exist then. So things are also amplified to that extent today versus what it used to be in 2002-03. but pretty much most categories, most habits started returning back to normal a couple of months post the end of the epidemic then, and hopefully the end of the pandemic.
All right, so I'll take some audience questions, Vishy, and then probably we can summarize with what's J&J doing, and then Kelvin can talk about some things that we have for our clients. I'm going to read through the chat, and maybe we can just take things sequentially just to honor the time of people who have asked before. So the first question comes from, let me just go through the chat. Yes, from Neil. And Neil is saying, how do you relate this to real estate industry? What do we think will be an impact on real estate?
Got it. Yeah, I think see, just my 2 cents on this. I'm not a real estate expert, but I think a good comparator to this is the 2008-9 financial crisis, because at the end of the day, this is a big investment, and similar to what we experienced then, we will go through a recessionary period. And in response to that, different financial authorities around the world are going to be loosening interest rates for sure. So as a result, I think what we are going to have as a situation is interest rates coming down, and hence it might become more attractive for people to buy homes. EMIs might actually come down. So definitely there will be an impact in terms of prices, etc., that would come down, but sooner rather than later, consumers will start seeing more value in buying something, EMIs will reduce, and I do feel that should actually step change after a couple of quarters.
Agree. And what I have been reading about real estate is you have different sort of buyers, right? So you have the second home buyers and the commercial property big buyers. For them, they are just investing in a different investment piece right now. So their blood is on the street. They are looking at stocks and they are buying them because that's the sort of profit they would be expecting later on. And then once the market goes back to stabilization mode, then that's where the profit generated would start going into real estate investments, because that's something that they do. Now for consumers who are buying their first home, or the ones who have been thinking about it over the next 12 months, I definitely agree that the real estate interest rates would be something that will make it more appetizing for them to buy. Because as governments are pumping a lot of money into it, the last thing they want is real estate getting bust.
Another point is, I think a lot of people are also looking at this particular situation and seeing, is real estate still a viable way that I can actually store my money? Because if property prices are going to crash during this period, people who have previously invested in property thinking there was a safe haven might not think it's going to be a good idea in the future as well. So a lot of things will be a lot of observations to be seen, after this particular period ends. And obviously, I think now definitely in Singapore, at the very least, you can't view houses. So obviously, people are not going to buy a house without looking at the house first. So definitely during this period, there will be some effect. And with the pent-up demand during this 3, 4, 5, 6 months, hopefully not, there's going to be quite a big surge in number of people looking at houses with the excess cash that they have after this period ends.
Yep. Good idea for a video showing the house. There are some property agents and real estate companies that do it. People have time on their hand. They are on video. So sneak peek of the new housing developments that are coming over. I'm going to read some comments for the home entertainment. There have been comments by Eduardo and also by, I think, Stephanie, who were talking about the in-home entertainments and the shows being stopped. Yes, I agree. And my apologies for missing that, because the problem is real. I just started watching MasterChef earlier this week. And then my wife told me that, while you're enjoying all this, it will stop midway because the production has stopped. So yes, the problem is real, but I hope people can find a workaround around it.
And I think people are also, this is just random observations from our own work in iSentia. We realize that people have been getting more and more vocal in social media, expressing their narratives and opinions. So fun fact, right? Amount of conversations from before COVID-19, late last year versus March of 2020, the amount of accommodations in places like Singapore and Indonesia has increased about 25%. And in places like Malaysia, where I think the lockdown has been very, very strict, we actually found a 50% increase in number of people talking, commenting, giving their opinions on social media. So I think even more so now, it's a very, very interesting time for brands to be absorbing these conversations, seeing how sentiments have shifted, seeing what's the new opportunities that people are liking to talk about. So I think it's a great way using social media, a cheap and easy way for a lot of industries and brands, not just real estate, not just alcohol, I'm seeing a lot of different sectors here to actually find out, what are these new consumer perceptions that arise because people have nothing better to do right now other than comment on social media.
Understand. Someone was talking about how do you think alcohol industry will be affected? Quick 30 seconds from both of you.
I've been drinking every single day because I have nothing better to do. I actually spent more money on alcohol this month in the last few months before the circuit breaker.
In fact, I believe the completely opposite way. See, alcohol is a social industry, meaning bulk of the alcohol consumption happens more in restaurants and pubs rather than at home. And especially when you stop socializing outside, this is one of the industries that is going to take a massive toll. I think some sale via retail stores for sure, they might actually even be going either way. But alcohol as an industry, which is primarily via B2B establishments, I think are going to take a massive hit.
Yeah, not everyone is like me.
Indeed.
By the way, I'm the tips guy. So a lot of duty-free shops that are at the airport have gone online. Yes, they have not done a big bang around it. So do check out the online version and you can get duty-free alcohol. Hopefully you can do a social one with a virtual social, or you can drink alone. All right, so let's go to a question from Stephanie. And Stephanie is asking, we are from beauty industry. We are also very much affected by crisis, especially beauty clinics on physical contact. It's important for us to see our patients and assess them in person. So this has really taken a toll on our business, but we are already thinking of ways on how to live in the new norm. So any advice for Stephanie, Vishy?
I think for sure, this is a big one. I think we also have products in the beauty industry. And in fact, my wife is a part of the LVMH group. So again, heavily in the beauty industry as well. And all of us are getting impacted on this. I think a couple of things that we have started doing is to offer experiences online as a substitute for what people might experience in the offline environment. I think, see, it's a very real thing that physical proximity is not going to be the norm, at least for the immediate future. I think an online experience is actually something that is super critical. And you can actually check different experiences that are offered by different companies. So as a result, just as an example, J&J has a brand called Dr. Shilabo. It's a luxury skincare product. What we do offer, it is a Japanese brand originated in Japan. So we do have the option that when customers want to buy this, they have the option to connect with somebody out of Japan to really have like an interactive session in terms of what are some of their skin conditions, what should they do about it, etc. So there is someone who is actually talking to you, who can actually counsel you in terms of some of these things that can actually get done. The second big piece that we have also done is that we have partnered with various customers. So examples are the likes of, say, Watsons, Lazada, Shopee, etc. And offering a much more seamless experience for buying some of the beauty products online and creating the right experiences online. I think, but it's a reality that despite all of these measures, the industry is definitely hit. It's just a reality from a consumer behavior perspective that consumption is dropping. And it is unfortunately something that we're all grappling with.
Okay. Those are very interesting points. Can I just ask, how does your team actually come out with all these different ideas of how to, all these very interesting ideas and how to go around these restrictions? What kind of data do you guys use? Do you guys brainstorm in a certain way?
Yes, I think.
So go ahead.
I think think, see first, right, I think let me just comment at an overall J&J level and then specifically what we do as teams. I think as a company, we have like 4 principles during these times. First and foremost is safety and well-being of our employees. I think ensuring work from home, ensuring that there are enough resources available for people, not just for physical health, but also mental health. So we have like employee assistance programs, etc., that we have scaled up. We have ensured that during these times, like employees also have the option of learning a lot more. So as J&J, we have ensured that every single employee gets free access to LinkedIn Learning, Harvard Business Review, etc., so that people can evolve their information and understanding during these times as well. We have also ensured that because we are a healthcare company, a lot of us are doctors as well. We have given free 14 weeks leave, paid leave to anyone who wants to serve in the front lines as a medical professional. And particularly when we are working from home, and if you are the sole care provider for somebody in the family and you don't have any other help that is available, you can take free paid leave till the time that the lockdown ends and till the time that we are still working. The second part, of course, is the serving the consumer and the patients. I think that's by far what is the core principle behind brand building and as a company that we stand for. And one of the pieces, right, the way that we divide our thinking is that we see that the world is going to go through 3 phases. One we call as the crisis phase. The second is a period of cautious recovery, and third is recovery. And what we also continuously keep sensing at this time is what are consumers expecting from brands during this period. So as an example, in crisis mode, people are not looking for brand-centric messaging to that extent. So what we are seeing is that what is the purpose of our various brands, and what do we stand for as a purpose which is beyond just the basic functional benefit that we offer. So as an example, one of our largest consumer healthcare brands is called Johnson's Baby. So what we do in this time is that we take a poll among several consumers in terms of what are some of the content that would be relevant to them. And so some of the things that where we have hosted live webinars via Facebook or via Shopee or via Lazada is on topics like how can pregnant moms better take care of themselves during COVID-19? How do you take care of newborns during COVID-19? How do you ensure that you're engaging your toddlers during these times? So we create relevant content, and what we do is that we, as a company, we believe in being science-based and professionally endorsed. So it's not some celebrity who talks on the topic. Usually it is a healthcare professional who's grounded in science who talks about these topics and in terms of how to drive these things more positively. We also rely a lot on our like different categories. I think, for instance, we also have Listerine, which is a big mouthwash. We create a lot of content around better hygiene during these times. And ensure that consumers have the right information. And lastly, I think we also believe in catering back to the community. I think one is that Johnson & Johnson has already committed about $50 million in order to support healthcare workers around. And in addition to that, because Johnson & Johnson is a healthcare provider, we have like the utmost relationships with most hospitals, etc. We have distributed healthcare packs in every single country. In terms of how healthcare workers can get better protected as well. And last, but most importantly, we are also working on advancing a vaccine. We have a lead candidate that we are currently working in preclinicals, and we are hoping that through the course of the end of the year, we are hopefully going to crack a vaccine and make it available for the population by next year. And we have committed $1 billion at risk to manufacture it at scale, even without knowing that we might have full success. Yeah, so that as a company, what we are doing, and ultimately as each of the brands, right? I think it's even more critical right now to be consumer and customer centric, to reflect upon ourselves, not what we are as a brand, but how can we better listen to what the consumers are saying, what do they need at this time, and how can we answer some of their questions better.
Thank you so much, Rishi. And we hope that the vaccine candidate is a successful one. That's going to be the silver bullet amongst all this. In the meantime, we still have to adapt and respond. So Kelvin, if you want to share some of your thoughts as well.
Yeah, just very quickly, because I know the webinar is supposed to end at 2 o'clock. So basically, after Prashan's presentation, all of you would have seen how the Adapt and Respond report will actually look like. So we are actually opening this option up to all our future and potential clients, potential and current clients, to actually custom a Adapt and Respond package to your company and your brand. So we're actually launching a whole package, which is basically 2 Adapt and Respond reports, daily and weekly monitoring reports, crisis flash reports instead in the event something goes very, very bad for your brand, as well as a campaign evaluation report. So all this would actually be a combination of both reactive monitoring as well as creating proactive opportunities for your brand, and of course measuring the ROI of these insights. So we will actually be launching this in every single market at a 30% discount from our usual rate cut. So if you guys are interested, please reach out to the iSentia representative who has contacted you, or email us at info.asia@isentia.com. Right, that's all.
And thank you so much, guys, for being a part of this webinar. There are lots and lots of questions that we had, so thank you so much for that. We'll be answering your questions in our post-event communications with you. So you will hear it from us if your question was not answered in the short span of 1 hour. So thanks a lot, and we'll be in touch again. Thank you so much. Have a rest of a good day. Thank you. Bye.